Good morning. Today I want to talk about stress in recovery because I have been feeling a lot of stress recently, and it gave me good reason to go back and review ways to deal with stress, but also the purpose of stress, and also why I get a little bit more stressed out than some of my peers do in similar situations. So, in recovery, in our addictions, we probably used alcohol and drugs as a way to escape stress. I know I did. In my addiction, despised feeling stressed. I wanted to feel relaxed. I wanted to feel chilled out. I didn't like the feeling of stress. That was very uncomfortable to me. And my motto in life was, stress is bad. Got to get rid of it no matter what. It doesn't have a place in my life. And so, even when I was in periods where I was working very stressful jobs for several years on end, that looking back, that's when my alcoholism, especially, was at some of its worst. That was where it kind of peaked, was during that time. And I would use the drugs and alcohol as a means of escape. But stress is a very useful thing in life, and when coped with properly, it is often the kicking off point for growth. It's often the catalyst for growth in life. And so we don't want to get rid of stress. A life without stress would be, in a lot of ways, a life without significant growth. And we'd be missing out on some of the growth that is important to life. And so what some of our normie peers are able to do is to deal with stress and to cope with stress in a more positive way. To review some of the different ways that we can cope with stress. None of these are going to come as a surprise. The challenge that I think a lot of us will find is in implementing these on a regular basis so that we have the strength and the foundational strength and energy to deal with stress when it arises. So, looking at several different sites this morning for advice on how to deal with stress in addiction recovery, there's, like I said, no big surprises. Get physical, number one. Get physical. Yoga, exercise, even a brisk walk around the block. These things can help channel stress out of your body, out of your mind. For us, number two, we're very fortunate that we've got these built-in networks of meetings we can go to, these spiritual booster shots. We can go to a meeting and get a little bit of spiritual energy from something like that we can then use to help us cope with the stress. Number three, expressing ourselves, whether it's just talking to someone else. Sometimes that's something that I know in my addiction, I didn't talk to people about my stress. I expressed that stress through anger, through resentment, through all sorts of other unhealthy means. And by lashing out, for example. And if we're able to express ourselves and just talk and say what's on our mind, what's bothering us, we'll be surprised at, one, how often other people understand, but two, how often just doing so gives us some fresh insight into that stress. In fact, that's one of the reasons that I recorded this video this morning, because I wanted to talk about what I'm feeling and help process it a little bit. Another way to express yourself, doing something creative, whether it's journaling, drawing, making music, anything that allows you to both express what you're feeling and channel some of the energy that's driving that stress in you. Now, the next two things go hand in hand: eat well and sleep well. These are things that I suck at when I'm stressed. When I'm stressed, I eat for comfort, and I tend to stay up later because usually what's happening is a lot of times I'm stressed because of something going on at work, for example. So I'll work until late in the evening, and then I'll stay up later because I need time to decompress. But actually, that's driving stress, making me more inefficient at work, which is part of the reason why I'm having to work so late in the first place. So if I can reconfigure that so I'm sleeping better, sleeping more time, I'm going to get more efficiency and decrease my stress overall by doing that. And then, that being said, we do have to make time to relax in here. But for me, in my addiction, you know, my time to relax, yeah, I needed like 3 hours to decompress at the end of the day. I think that as we get into recovery, we find that that amount of time decreases. And sometimes for me these days, just taking 5 minutes to breathe and, listen to the world around me and kind of chill out. Or at the end of the day, just taking, half an hour to watch a funny TV show. That's enough to decompress. And so that's important as well, though, is that we want to build some of that time in there. The most important part for me, though, the seventh thing on this list is to remember to control only what I can control. We got to remember what the big book says on page 60. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. And when I get stressed, I'm being the actor who wants to run the show, hands down. And as I look over the past few days where my stress has been at a super high level, I've wanted to be that director. I've wanted to direct everything. And I have been very, very quick to point out to myself and to people around me when I think other people are doing other than what they should be doing. And, I've been focused a lot on if only so and so would do something different, or if only this would happen different in the world, then I could be less stressed. And that's stinking thinking. We got to get away from that because we don't have control over that kind of stuff. So we've got to remember what we have control over. And when I start focusing on other people and what they need to do different for me to feel better, it's a sign I need to refocus my energy on what I can do and let everything else fall as it may. And this is where, if you believe so, trust in God, have faith in God, have faith in the universe, have faith in the program you're working, that as long as you keep going down the path you're supposed to be on, everything's going to be fine. But control what you can control and not everybody around you. So that's my little spiel on dealing with stress and recovery. There's a lot of resources out on the web that can help you if you want even more info. Certainly a lot more information about dealing with stress in general. But there's no major secret. We already know a lot of this stuff. It's just a matter of implementing it when we need it, but especially when we don't. Putting these things into practice in times we're not stressed out is going to help us keep them going and help us build up the foundation for the coping mechanisms we need when the stress finally hits. Doing all of this is what's going to help us avoid relapse when we get into those really stressful situations. Because a lot of times those stressful situations can be triggers for going into a relapse. So that's one of the big purposes of all of this. So thank you for giving me me the opportunity to express myself this morning, some of the stuff I'm going through. Hope you all have a good day. I'll be back here tomorrow with more from Staying Sober by Gorski and Miller.